In episode number 366 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover Birds of Prey. The comic book is being resolicited. They are not letting Brian Azzarello play in the comic world yet again.
And we also have an announcement from IMAX on their plans for the Joker movie.
Our comic book highlight this week is Batman number 79 as the city of Bane ramps up.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to your podcast awards nominated The Reasons I'm Broke. I am Youngster Daniel.
And I'm Kelly.
No Palpa Kelly today?
Not today. I'm too tired. Too tired to be palping the world.
The way we format the show is we cover comics, movies, TV, video games, and more every single week. We go through the news first. We head into our Patreon shoutouts, which are thank yous to everyone for making the show possible. We head into our comic book review of the week, and we end it with a Brokehead block, which is where Palpa Kelly and I have been.
Starting off with some video game news, though, the world has been asking for forever for Goku to appear in Super Smash Bros.
Right behind Cory in the house, of course.
Right. Priorities.
Well, game director Masahiro Sakurai used Goku as the demanded example and confirmed that they'd only be adding characters who originated from video games. So we will not be seeing Goku in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as a DLC character. He killed that rumor.
That seemed kind of an easy way out of that one.
By saying that it needs to originate from a video game?
That's kind of an easy out. Like, not that, the guy who voices him is an asshole. No, he gotta exist in video games.
Well, again, I don't think the voice actors are really, because they would just do a Fire Emblem and have them, the Japanese actors, and it would be fine. And I know a lot of people where this is, you're right though, a way out of, well, he's not really a video game character. Well, he is. He's been in a ton of games. Mm-hmm. Oh, but he did not originate in a video game. And that's how you get around it. I'm sure it'd be a very popular character, a very popular piece of DLC. But by limiting it to just gaming characters, and it sounds like he wants it to maintain that theme. He is, I believe, one of the main co-creator of this original Smash Brothers game. He has a vision. He doesn't want to muddle it up with, if you open it to Goku, then people will then start demanding Superman and Naturo
and Cory in the house.
So sorry everyone, there will not be Goku in Smash Brothers Ultimate.
Something that is a little surprising though, not something that I really expected, and not sure that we need this, but IMAX debuted an all-new Joker poster last week, along with the announcement that the film will be in IMAX theaters for the first week of Joker's release.
So a very limited window on when you can catch this in the IMAX presentation. The Joker movie, of course, debuts in North America on October 4th, but Brokehead core member at Cuban Slim, Bobby asked if this was actually shot in IMAX cameras or if it's just being presented in that IMAX format. And as far as all the research I've done, and being that it is a lower budget film, I don't believe that it was at all shot in IMAX. And on top of that, it's only being presented for that first week of release. It's a limited window. So if it had been an IMAX release, then they could really blow it up, charge the extra money for the tickets, but instead you're going to get that large screen, you're going to get the great sound, but it will not have that IMAX quality picture that you would normally get in scenes like The Dark Knight, where some portions of that movie, the action scenes, were filmed with the IMAX cameras.
Joke's on us, Tommy Wiseau had a plan in this, and he filmed it in both.
We didn't talk about this last week, but I don't know if you saw that the Joker posters after the Golden Lion win and all of these critic reviews came out, they've been using quotes from negative reviews in the posters.
Really?
But they're taking out the quotes that make it sound like it's a masterpiece as a way to troll a lot of these negative reviews, which is amazing. Hilarious. Because if you go down and actually track down the full review, you'll see that it's all, for that particular reviewer, it's all negative, but then they'll take the positive bit of a masterpiece of cinematic, blah, 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 and they'll just throw that on there. And
so like them being sarcastic and like
kind of, yeah, which is pretty funny. And I'm sure the reviewers don't mind because they're getting exposure, so they're not being upset that they wrote that quote. It's being put up there and they're not adding to it, so it's just their words up on the big screen, or at least on the posters. The last thing I will say about this IMAX presentation is it's not something we ever go to. We never go and see these IMAX movies. I'm tempted to get the IMAX tickets just so I can get that larger presentation, and I know the picture quality is not going to be IMAX quality. But if there's a movie that you want to enjoy the full cinematography of, at least we know that it's shot well from the theater, from the trailers. There's no denying that. You can hold off your opinion on the full acting and the story itself, but you can look at all the trailers, and each one of those, as we said in the past, you can frame these shots and hang them up in your house. So if you were to see all of this on the IMAX screen, this is the one to do it. And I know it's not on those cameras, and that's why it's only for 1 week, but I kind of want to go for that.
You're not fooling anybody. You're hoping they sell those tickets earlier than the regular tickets.
That'd be the way to do it, too. I'm still waiting for, though, and hopefully by the time this episode releases, they will have gone up. But even fucking Maleficent, which doesn't go out till October 18th, you can buy tickets for that shit. I'm still waiting. Still waiting for the Joker tickets. Need my seats.
You act like every seat is gonna fill up.
You know how I am. I gotta have that spot filled. Gotta have my seats. Gotta know that I will have the right spot in that theater. Just like at Astra. Bought my tickets. We're gonna go see that. I know we're gonna get good seats. We can arrive as the movie's starting, and I won't panic as much.
Any seat in the Joker theater is gonna be a great seat. You're like, no, Kelly. Stop it. Stop with your nonsense.
We did get some solicitations from DC Comics and the rest of the comic book publishers, which we'll cover more in depth when the next previews catalog comes out. I know this month we did not cover the previews catalog, but we will make sure to take care of that for next month's book, which should be out next week. But some of these early solicitations, we are going to touch on just a few, and I know news is a little bit lighter, but this was actually sent over to us by longtime brocat Chris on Twitter at TheIrishOnFire, and it is Frank Miller's new line of Batman black and white statues. So this edition is going to feature Frank Miller's armored Batman from The Dark Knight Returns comic book.
If you had told me it was just a Frank Miller design, I would have been like, meh. But then you told me it's armored Batman, and I'm like, meh.
Yeah, as we saw, Batman v Superman suit was heavily inspired by this armored Batman suit that he used to fight Superman in one of the greatest Batman stories of all time. This statue is set to release in summer 2020, and it looks exactly like a Frank Miller page. Came right out and sat on a base. Batman standing there with, I can't remember if it's exactly a gun or if it was like an electric type of fire shot that he hits. Oh no, you know what? I thought it was a sound blaster. Maybe he uses that out of his hand. It's been years since I've read the comic book itself.
Someone correct us.
But the design looks amazing. The statue looks great. And another great addition to the Batman black and white line.
But that's not all that Frank Miller is giving us. Apparently, he's running low on some money. So he is going to add to his Dark Knight Returns continuity with The Golden Child, which will be a 48-page one-shot with art from Rafael Grampa, who did The Massive.
So this one shot, he has hinted before that he's going to continue the continuity.
When he needs the money.
It looks like they're just letting him do it. I thought they were going to force Brian Azzarello or someone to co-write with him.
How old is this guy now?
He's got to be in his 70s. I can't remember. I got to look that up. But this one is set 3 years after The Dark Knight 3, The Master Race. It's going to focus on Jonathan Kent, who is the son of Superman and Wonder Woman in this DC alternate universe continuity.
How old is Jonathan Kent? I thought he was a baby. Maybe I'm mixing up other things.
Again, this is all in a whole different continuity. It has nothing to do with the current DC universe.
Frank Miller's a scary looking man. I'm trying to Google his age right now.
Well, I know he went through some medical stuff like 5 to 10 years ago, so he's looking a lot better these days, though, than back then.
He was born in 57, so he's only 65, 60-something. Older than that. I don't know. Good for Frank Miller. I'm glad that he's still writing, that he's still keeping himself relevant. I'm sure they're going to have some tight leashes on this man.
Frank Miller, regardless of what kind of work he continues to put out, will always be remembered as one of the greatest Batman writers and one of the greatest Batman artists. He definitely cemented himself in Batman's history with The Dark Knight Returns alone.
Jonathan Kent isn't the only character that we're going to get in this story, though. Kelli, who debuted in the original The Dark Knight Returns as Robin, and then grew to become Batwoman in Master Race, will be part of the Golden Child.
I'm assuming that's who we see in the cover of the solicited book, so it looks like Kelli is continuing the mantle of what Bruce set forth with this next part in the Golden Child, and I'm assuming however this goes will give us a possible future into maybe more one-shots or another miniseries. I'm not holding my breath on this one just because it sounds like it's only written by Frank Miller, and I feel like they really helped level a lot of that out with Azzarello on Dark Knight 3, but I guess we'll find out. I'll definitely give it's a one-shot. Why not see what happens after the Dark Knight 3?
Currently, this book is set to release December 11th.
Speaking of Brian Azzarello, DC Comics has announced that his Birds of Prey comic book has been canceled and will instead be delayed and repurposed as a DC Black Label comic book.
So he's still writing it.
He is.
Just not now.
I think it's going to be a limited series now, just like the rest of the Black Label comic books.
But maybe he's getting more free reign to do what he really wants?
That's what I asked him on Twitter, and I know he had a bit of a...
Because you're buds?
He had a little bit of not a meltdown, but he was getting a little snarky about how DC editorial, something rather. He was being very coy about what was happening with Birds of Prey. And I don't know if the movie itself has anything to do... It's Brian Azzarello. The last time we had a huge change was in Batman Damned, and his book was delayed. I'm assuming there were rewrites. There were definitely, if there were rewrites, then the art had to be completely changed. And someone like Lee Bermejo, who does some very detailed artwork, it took him that much longer to finish these couple of issues. And it sounds like we're getting the same thing here, where Brian is trying to push the envelope, trying to do something a little bit more mature. And DC editorial got nervous and instead is pushing this into the Black Label book. That being said, I hope they are letting him do, as you said, a little bit more of tell the story that he wants to tell.
So with this book being pushed back, it will now come out in February 2020, the same month that Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, the film, is set to release in theaters.
It's also going to get an all-new cover, which does fit more in line with the Black Label books, in which it's kind of more mature looking in its presentation, and it's not quite as DC Rebirth looking with the dynamics and the characters forefront.
I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. It releasing the same month as the movie is obviously could potentially, right, bring more people in to pick up that book, because then they're going to say, I just saw this movie, what do you have? And you're going to say, boom, I have this comic book, right? And then in addition, if he's being able to do more of what he wants to do, then that just makes it a better story.
That second bit is what I'm mainly worried about, or what I'm rooting for, because as Brokettes know, that the residual sales from a movie or a TV show only last for that month. They don't come back for issue 2, 3, 4, and so on.
Unless it's a great story.
Even then, they don't come back. And that's fine. Let them buy a Funko Pop. Let them buy a couple of back issues. We benefit from it just the same, but it's not a long-lasting success, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. That's why we have subscribers. That's why we have the readers that are there every week or every month to pick up their comics.
Well, time will tell how this comic will be. I'm still holding out hope. It started out like a sad news story, but we turned it around. But that does actually wrap up our news for the week. Like you said earlier, it was a fairly slow news week, not a whole lot, which inevitably means that next week will be giant and it'll be a 2-hour episode, because that's how it always works out.
Real quick, so did jingle yet for Patreon or not yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. So Bobby just tweeted me because he was asking about the IMAX
Okay.
question, and he said, I answered that I'm pretty sure it's being presented in IMAX and not actually shot in IMAX cameras because of the lower budget.
Mhm.
Plus, it's only a 1-week window. He responded with, quote, yuck, that is what I thought. So what you're saying is they're selling higher price tickets to full audiences and to make more money for the flail CEU. End quote. My response is, I better not see you watching this then. Better not get any news that you watched the Joker film. And he wouldn't like it anyway. He likes the MCU. He likes his junk food movie. This is going to be a little too much for him, I think, and the rest of the MCU audience. So I advise you not to go see the Joker movie because I don't think you'll like it. I think it'll be a little too scary, a little too dark, a little too horror.
I thought your response was going to be like, yeah, I am going to give them more money.
If the movie deserves more money, and so far, the cinematography alone has earned that cash, then yeah, like, why not? And they have been fooling audiences with MCU for over 10 years now. So if we're going to talk about fooling audiences, let's be real here.
This movie is not going to be for everyone, and that's okay.
All right, let's head into the Patreon shoutouts of the week.
Is Bobby one of our shoutouts this week? You better say nice.
Well,
things.
that was his shout out. So he got a shout out early this month.
Thank you, Bobby.
We got 3 shout outs this week, kicking it off with Joshua T on Twitter at Drips1963.
Joshua said, quote, got my subscription to DC Universe and the content on there is great. Catching up on the DC Comics animated movie universe, highly recommend it, end quote.
Very nice, Joshua. I'm glad you're enjoying the DC Universe service. It is an awesome streaming service. You got all the animated movies on there, the amazing TV shows from the Timverse, and of course, for those of you that do read digital comics, you've got a whole library on there to last a lifetime. What I'm curious to see if you've seen it yet, Joshua. The Emerald Knights has been on my mind lately, just because the Jeff Johns book 2 trade paperback came out this week. So that reminded me, like, oh man, they're really building up into the Sinestro Corps and into the rest of that full Green Lantern lore that Jeff Johns lent his 9 years of writing for and did an amazing job. So I'm curious to see, Joshua, if you watched Green Lantern Emerald Knight yet.
Our next shout out goes out to Nick F., whose Twitter handle is at Jersey Whisperer and at Nick's News. I can't even read it. Sorry. At Jersey Whisperer and at Nick's Nerd News 1.
Nick tweeted out, quote, I'm coming back with Nick's Nerd News version 2.0. Hopefully be up and running before the end of October. Just a few more software updates and I'll get going, end quote. And he tweeted that with an image of an amazing backdrop. He's got all kinds of great movie and comic book posters behind him. I think it looks tighter and the presentation has gotten elevated from what he did before. Not that what he did before was bad. He had great masks and he had great statues and everything, but now it seems like he's really tightened up his vision even more than what he had before. So you can be sure to follow him once again on Twitter at Nick's Nerd News 1 and at Jersey Whisperer.
That's great that he's making small changes. We found in our own journey, right, doing all these kind of creative things for the masses, that it's constantly evolving. So that's awesome. Can't wait to see where it goes.
Last shout out this week goes out to Julian W. on Twitter at Kage023 and at Lazy Gaming Guys.
Julian replied to a picture of a GameCube asking, quote, what's the first game that comes to mind when you look at this picture? End quote.
He responded with Super Mario Sunshine and Super Smash Bros. Melee.
What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
For me, it was the same as Eric's on Twitter at EAntonOfficial. It was Star Fox Adventures. And the original title was Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet. The reason being is that the first time I kept reading on Nintendo Power and online that the GameCube controller was the most comfortable video game controller of all time. They kept talking about how it fit in your hands perfectly, it felt natural, and everything about it. Like, I was like, I could only imagine, right? Like,
right.
Oh, that's really neat. Well, I went to my local Toys R Us at that time because I had heard that these kiosks had finally arrived to these retailers And when I got to Toys R Us, they had, I can't remember if it was a demo presentation or simply a demo for Star Fox Adventures. But of course, I had to play Star Fox Adventures. I'm a huge Star Fox fan. And when I first got my hands on the controller, I'm like, holy shit, they were fucking right. It is an amazing controller. It is the most comfortable controller I've played ever. A lot of people will say the Wavebird, which is still a GameCube controller, is a little bit better because they really refined it and it weighs a lot less than the regular one and it's wireless. But I remember playing Star Fox Adventures, going through the temple, going through a little bit of combat, and then enjoying that controller. And just like I couldn't wait to once again get my hands on a GameCube. And this was before the console released. You can play the console before release, and it was amazing. So that's actually what comes to mind first. How about you with the Nintendo GameCube?
So whenever I see that logo, I always hear the I mean, you have to, right? That's just a picture that you hear. But the first game that comes to mind is actually Luigi's Mansion, which was the first game that released on it. And I think I remember it so vividly because I remember the weekend that these systems released and they were gone everywhere. Like you could not find one. And my best friend at the time, Ashley, her brothers got their hands on 3. Don't ask me how. They waited in line overnight for hours at all these, Best Buys and new people who knew when they were coming in. So they played so much Luigi's Mansion, and it wasn't even that great of a game. I don't know. But I just remember they started it up all the time while I was over there, and we all watched them play Luigi's Mansion. I've never played it myself. That's just the one that I remember. The game that I played the most on there would probably be the Sonic games when they released those.
Nice. Sonic Adventure 1 DX and then Sonic Adventure 2 Battle.
Yes. Sonic Adventure Battle 2.
Whatever.
That's not the real name. That's just what I always called it. So my brother got them for Christmas one year, for his birthday one year, and he was still a little too young to really enjoy it. So he just watched me, and I played through both games. Completely got to be supersonic and beat the fucking Chow thing, Chaos, whatever. That was such a conspiracy. Do you remember that when you realized that Chaos and Chow were spelled the same? And you were like, oh my God. And it just never amounted to anything. But
what's really funny is when I was a kid and I had not heard the word chaos before when I had first played the Genesis Sonic games. Whenever they said catch the Chaos Emeralds, I always pronounced it in my head as Chows, the Chows Emeralds. Oh, okay, the Chows Emeralds. And then Adventure came out, and then they're like, oh, it's the Chows. And I'm like, so what the fuck? Was I right or was I wrong? And then, of course, you know about Chaos Control, so I'm like, all right, maybe it is Chaos then with the fucking Emeralds.
Right,
but the goddamn Chows threw a wrench in my whole, teenage brain.
Yeah.
So those are great games.
Yeah.
I love the Sonic Adventure games. I played the second one. I can't say the games. I didn't play the first one, but I did play the second one, and I really, really liked it.
The first one was cool. DX was pretty cool because you played the game as different characters. So you picked Sonic, and then you had all of Sonic's levels, and then you picked Tails, and you had all of Tails' levels. The ones that sucked were Big, the giant
Big
cat, because you were fishing for that frog. Stupid frog.
Why is he fishing for? Leave the fucking frog alone. That big ass asshole.
The frog swallowed an emerald.
Let him fucking swallow the emerald then.
But
let him live his frog life.
But I still remember my favorite levels because I used to play them over and over. Now I'm going down a rabbit trail, right? Because you got me started on my childhood. So in DX, my favorite one was the Windy Valley. Did you ever play that one? You didn't.
I didn't play DX.
Man, it was so cool. There's a tornado coming after you and you got to run. And then in Adventure 2 Battle, it was the one with Shadow when he's in the city escape. And then, no, that wasn't his. That was Sonic's level. But I like Sonic's
with
levels.
With a giant truck coming after you?
Yeah. That was my other one favorite.
I think that was the first level of the game.
Yes, it was. And it had the greatest soundtrack ever because it was rolling around at the speed of sound. And then in that game, you could also just play the soundtrack. And I used to just play the soundtrack.
It really is an amazing soundtrack.
It was.
I don't care how cringy it may be today or the lyrics really, but I fucking jam to that shit.
Me too. We should bust it out and play it.
Live and learn. Hanging on the edge to tomorrow.
And then you had to snowboard on that plane, which would have caused sparks everywhere, but whatever. But did you know in that one level, remember when the rocket takes off? There's
Yeah.
like, you can get to the very top of it. And I've never done it. And I tried so many times.
To kind of get off on this GameCube topic, my favorite Star Wars game was Rogue One, or Rogue Leader, I think is what it was called. Star Wars Rogue Leader.
Yeah.
And it was a launch game. And to this day, I will say that it is one of the greatest launch games of all time. You can still play that game in the final days of the GameCube, and the graphics were fucking stellar. The gameplay was tight as hell. It was all ship levels. None of this lightsaber crap that they added later on, unfortunately. It was with Rogue Leader 2 or Rogue Squadron 2, whatever they called it. They added like some Jedi levels. You can run around on foot. And I'm sure that was with fan demand. But honestly, the game shined best when you had your ships and everything. And from what I understand, it was Rogue Leader 2 that was on the GameCube, and then Rogue Leader 3 came out. They were working on another Rogue Leader game for, I believe, the Wii, but then the company fell apart and went bankrupt, and because of that, we won't get anything like that, unfortunately, from that same studio. But I do want to say a huge shout out to the Rogue Squadron games on GameCube, even Rogue Squadron 3, because there were still some really solid ship levels there.
Better than all of those, Pokemon Snap.
That was N64.
Doesn't matter. Better than all of them. Like, if they're like, Kelly, you can have the GameCube and all its games, or you can have Pokemon Snap, but one has to disappear forever. I'd be like, I need to keep Pokemon Snap. See you later, GameCube. Bye. That's how I feel.
You're an expert at that game.
I'm the best. I beat it in like an hour. Remember the first time you watched me? I'm like, here's this, click. Here's this, click. Need that for later, click.
So thank you so much to our Patreon shoutouts, Joshua, Nick, and Julian. If you too would like your shoutout and add to the content of the episodes each month, head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke.
For as little as $1 a month, that's 25 cents an episode, sometimes less if there's 5 weeks in the month, you too can have your shout out.
As always, the best thing you can do is tell a friend about the podcast. If you have a fellow DC beluga in your life, let them know about this podcast thing, because a lot of people don't know what podcasts are. It is like on-demand internet radio. You can listen to it whenever. It's free, ad-free as well. If you're listening to this on a podcast player that has ads, get Pocket Casts, because that is ad-free. So get yourself one of those.
That's what you're saying.
Let's head into our review for this week. It is our comic book highlight.
This week is Batman number 79. This is written by Tom King with art by Clay Mann, and the colorist is Tomeu Mori.
So this is mainly going to be Palpa Kelly's review, because it is, these last two issues, 78 and 79, have just been Batman and Catwoman, Batcat, left and right, panel to panel, page to page. So have at it. Gush away at these couple of issues.
Well, let me start by saying that I read these 2 issues, but I did not probably read the 10 issues before that.
But it did not affect your enjoyment of it,
But it did not
I'm
affect
sure.
my enjoyment. It was wonderful. I was so happy. Listen, as much as I enjoyed these 2 issues, and I really genuinely enjoyed them, I'm still like, Tom King, what you doing? Like, nobody wants to read this except for me.
Wow. He's giving fans what they fucking wanted with the goddamn wedding.
And it's so perfect. So it's them in Hawaii being Magnum PI.
Was it Hawaii? I did not know where they were.
I'm pretty sure they're in Hawaii because that's where Magnum PI is from.
Okay.
So that would make a lot of sense because Batman looks exactly like Magnum PI.
Clay Mann is a huge Magnum PI fan, and his Instagram is Clayman PI, and he's got the logo on there. So yeah, it makes sense that he would just say, I'm going to draw him as his undercover look is fucking
Magnum PI.
What's his name?
Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck.
Yeah, might as well. That's one of Leo's favorite shows too. So Magnum PI and Blue's Clues, like it's great. So yeah, she's nursing him back to health after whatever went down with Bane. I don't know. They're just on this island and they have a lot of heart-to-hearts, right? They're alone on this island. They're training in the waterfall wilderness of Hawaii. And she pretty much says, I thought I was being a hero. I thought I was doing something good by letting you go because that's what I needed to do. But it turns out I'm still a villain because I want to be selfish. And so by the end of these 2 issues, it kind of turned into a 2-issue review, sorry. But by the end of these 2 issues, they realize that they can still be who they need to be by being together, by working together. And ultimately, all the things that happen leading up to this point just help them grow so that they can realize that they can do those things, whereas before they may not have been ready to accept that fully and what that meant. So throughout issue 78, you know, they're arguing the whole time while they're getting back into it and stopping crime and all these things. They're arguing the whole time of, when did we really first meet? And she says that it was on the street, and he says, well, I wasn't really Batman then, so the first time we met as our true selves was on the boat. And then they have this whole back and forth, and they get to the point where they're ready to go back to Gotham and start saving crime, and Batman pretty much goes, you know, I feel like, he doesn't use the words born again, right? But he feels like they've been through a change at this point, and now they're different than they were. So he says, maybe this is the first time that we met each other on a beach as who we really are. And then they move forward with their lives. Oh, it was so good. Oh, and they get busy in the comic too.
Yeah, and then you have that parrot looking over like, imagine that during sex. It was right outside their fucking little hut.
I didn't even notice him because my heart was so happy. I was just like, yes. Because she's like, we need to go stop crime. And he's like, you're beautiful. And then she's just like, okay, tomorrow.
And that's what she kept saying, where, no, this is the part where you grunt and say, but what about Gotham? And they go back and forth, and he's still not being Batman, I guess.
He's been a long time without sex. He was ready. He was going to say whatever he needed to move this along.
Yeah, this has all been, I believe, even though I'm not a fan of Batcat, I'm a Talia al Ghul, Bruce Wayne fan.
Get out of my house. I'll finish the show by myself.
These two issues seem to be like a healing moment to how the Batman was broken after the City of Bane arc started. And this is where Catwoman kind of puts all the pieces together, but also puts herself together. And then they each work to really she becomes the new Robin, essentially is what happens here.
No!
Because we're not going to have Alfred, right? We know that. And anyone that Batman works with is immediately a Robin. So, except for Alfred. So this is them growing as a couple, growing as Batman and Catwoman. They're
growing
talking
as
about
people, individuals.
What'd you think of the end of the issue where she still wants to keep the diamond, and he's still like, no, you still can't keep that though. So he's still not letting her be a criminal at the end after all of this.
Right. That's fine. That's their thing now though. Do you really think she wants to keep that diamond? Like realistically?
Yes.
No, that's their thing. That's even though they've moved past that point, right? Like it's a romance novel thing, right? They always have that, and it's like foreplay for them.
What do you think of, kind of building on that, the fact that it is kind of like a cat and mouse game with the two, but her being Catwoman, she's the mouse, him being Batman, Bat is in the rodent family, they're completely flip-flopped.
So hot.
Do you think there's any poetry or symbolism behind that?
I'm sure it is, but you could also, like, if you really dig deep, right? But you could also sit there and say, well, she's the woman and he's the man, and that's usually how it happens.
Gotcha.
But realistically, right, let's dig into that even more. So he's chasing her, but she knows what she's doing, so really she's the one orchestrating all of that. So she's still in control.
Gotcha.
Please.
So you like the issue,
good.
huh?
I did. It was a romance story, right? These two issues were just a very well put together, like we're in the last 10% of the book. So romance novels, you got 70% of buildup, you get to the 80% point, and then everything falls apart, and then in the last 10%, they all come back together and they live happily ever after. And that's my favorite part of the book. So they're happy, they're together, it's everything I expected and more.
So I know we've tried to put together this narrative of when Tom King ends the run with issue number 85 and the replacement of a new Black Batman and then the Batman Catwoman miniseries that's supposed to come out next year with the Phantasm. I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen, but Tom King has pissed us off as a fan base once already with Batman number 50. How upset would you be if he does in fact, they pull a Walking Dead, he does in fact kill off Batman by the end of this run, and they say that the Batman Catwoman solicitation was all fake because they needed to hide the fact that there was going to be a new Batman in town.
That's not even going to happen. He wouldn't do that to me. I mean us. I mean the people. He can't. He wouldn't do that.
I'd be more mad at the fact that it's like, you fucking promised the Phantasm. That's mainly what I'm concerned with. It's like, now he can move on from Selena and be with Andrea.
No,
Yes, right, you're right.
Stop.
Yes.
No. I would be more mad at DC, like, tricking us like that. You can't be tricking us.
That's Tom King.
You can't
he
be
fucking
you
fucked
can't
with
be
us
tricking
with
us.
Batman 50.
But here's, yes, he screwed us over with Batman 50, right? But he did it to bring the characters to this point. He always had that vision of the current state that Batman and Catwoman were in when they were going to get married. They couldn't have been together. Mm-hmm. So he had to go through this, both of them breaking, to rebuild as new people, to rebuild together, to not only heal as a couple, but to heal as individuals. Because Selena has a whole slew of problems too, right? And so she needed the opportunity to heal and to really face what it meant to go into this relationship with Batman so they could move forward. That's where Tom King was going. Did I like it? No. But it's great now.
One thing I did say when Batman 50 came out is that when they decide to do the real wedding in 100 issues, because he said this is a 100-issue arc, no one will care is what I said. No one will give a shit. I still don't think people will give a shit if they do another Batman wedding, but honestly, I don't think we're going to get a wedding. I think they're just going to be together now, and that is it. There's not going to be a formal, actual, now a real wedding issue.
Yes. I think if they do get married, it'll be like, oh, we eloped. Like, we just did this.
Do you think they'll even legally? I don't think they'll even do it legally.
No, probably not. But I don't, in this new relationship of who they are, I don't feel that I don't think they feel they need to do that, if that makes sense.
No, you're right.
Whereas before they were like, yep, we need to do this because we need to make it official. We need to tie ourselves to each other. Mm-hmm. Whereas now I think they already realized how tied they are to each other. So we don't need to go through that step. But her wedding dress was beautiful. So
people still do fan art for it. People have done like custom Funko Pops even.
It's beautiful.
Of this wedding dress. And a lot of people cosplay as wedding dress Catwoman as well.
Loved it.
So there you go, a lengthy review for Batman 79, mainly from Papa Kelli. Yeah,
I can keep going.
A lot of content there. But let's head into the final segment of today's show, where Papa Kelli and I have been. It is the Broquette Block.
This is what Daniel and I have done this week. My week was pretty busy. How was your week? You want to start? You want to share?
Yeah, my week wasn't bad. I know from Twitter a lot of Northeast retailers, comic shops had their comics delayed by up to 48 hours as far as their comic book shipment. And thankfully down here in Florida, we were good. We had our comics on time. We were putting it out. One of my subs, he's a friend with another retailer up north. And he said that, yeah, the guy didn't get his comics until later on today, which is New Comic Book Day. So his stuff was delayed. And that was kind of a pattern with all of these retailers going up the coast. And he was telling me, like, I don't think it's a weather thing because the hurricane moved on. Right. And he said that it was mainly a UPS problem. We get our stuff through FedEx, so I don't know if he meant FedEx, but books somewhere somehow got delayed at some shipment, and all of this piece of coast was affected by that delay. So maybe some Broquette Core members did not get their books on time because of that. But that was one thing that I found curious as someone who I try to keep my fingers on the pulse of what is going on everywhere else in the nation as far as comic shops. So I thought this week's shipment was going to be huge because I saw the Marvel list and I'm like, God damn, Absolute Carnage and House of X. Because every week you get House of X and Powers of X or Powers of 10, whatever they're calling it. And the fact that landed, of course, when Absolute Carnage was coming out, I got nervous last time that happened. That was at the shop till about midnight. But it turns out that the DC portion of New Comic Book Day was pretty small compared to your normal weeks. So it ended up balancing out well. I got out relatively on time as my normal Tuesdays. So that was pretty good. We had an amazing New Comic Book Day total this week. So I was really happy about that, especially being that it was a smaller DC week. I thought that it would be kind of a slower, and it felt like a slower Wednesday, but it was just big transactions, which was really nice. So, yeah, I mean, it was a strong week financially for the shop. It was a decent week as far as stress up to this point. So, what else personally? I didn't see where we bought our tickets for Ad Astra, which is the latest Brad Pitt movie, and also co-stars Tommy Lee Jones. So, I'm looking forward to watching that. I know Clayton, one of my friends, you guys heard him 2 episodes ago on the podcast. He's going to go see Ad Astra. And I'm waiting also for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to finally hit the Blu-ray and 4K pre-order release because I'm definitely going to buy that on day one. But the other thing that I've been working on this week is we ended up getting a button press for not only the podcast, but also to help out with some of the gaming events that I run at the shop and also for buttons at the store. And I put up some of them on our shop. You can go to thereasonsimbroke.com/pin shop and you will find some buttons up there that they're one of a kind. They're hand done by me, or hand pressed by me, I should say. But yeah, they're cut out of comic books or previews or whatever. Images that I think are really neat. And I put them up there as soon as they sell. That's it for the set. Like, they're all unique. So that's kind of what I've been working on this week. But yeah, just keeping busy. And Leo caught a cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you're going to go into that.
Yeah, so he did. Initially thought that he just had allergies because it was a day that your allergies were kicking in and he was sniffly also. And so we're like, okay, he's got your allergies, right? But he just progressively got worse. So it was just a head cold, right? Real stuffy, sneezing a lot, never really moved down into his chest with coughing or anything. But for those of you who have kids, you know a kid with a cold is just inconsolable, wants to be held all the time and snuggled. And so I found a free trial of Nick Jr. Noggin, and we just watched Blue's Clues and Paw Patrol all week. You know, he spent time with our family still, and they were able to snuggle him and help him feel better. So he's finally on the upswing. I think he's mostly past it now. But the even more difficult part within that, so he had a head cold, but then I caught a stomach virus for 4 days and just felt terrible. Like, I couldn't eat anything without feeling nauseous. I couldn't drink anything, water included, without feeling nauseous. And it just ran me down. So I feel even coming off, you know, still trying to catch up from the hurricane. And then that happened. So that ran me down.
The non-hurricane?
Even the non-hurricane. But it was stressful. Like, it was stressful in work. It was stressful in home, just trying to get everything taken care of. So I still don't feel caught back up. I still don't feel back in my rhythm of what my week was because all that happened. So it was an exhausting week. Some great things that happened, though. My store had its most successful week in the last year and a half.
Nice.
So yeah, we did really well financially. We were doing great in other metrics. So I don't ever want to take all the credit because it is really my team. Am I influencing them a little bit? Sure.
Like I told Maceo and you earlier this week, PR talk.
Yeah, that's really what it is. I have a great team. I really enjoy where I work. Comparatively to where I was, it's a great, great place. So I enjoy what I'm doing and the work that I'm doing and the people that I work with, and they all have my back and they're ready to support me to help reach these goals. Because I wasn't there every single hour of the day making my coffee, right? I left and my team carried on. So
Brian and Meg always ask when they come in how work is for you, how you're enjoying the new position. So it's good that you give these updates because and they're positive, which is nice.
Yeah, it's really great. And like my coffee intake has increased, which is
mine too. That's your fault too, though.
Because I just bring it home. You've saved money on coffee, so
I have.
There you go.
With this bougie coffee.
Your bougie coffee. I'm like brewing some cold brew in the sink right now. It's like in a tub sitting in the sink. It's not like in the sink.
It's a homebrew cold brew. Homebrew cold brew.
Homebrew cold brew. It is. It is a cold, like, yes. I'm just making cold brew at home. Like, anybody can make cold brew at home. It's real easy, guys. I'm going to give you the recipe, okay? So you take a pound of coffee and you grind it on French press. Please grind it on French press. Otherwise, it's not going to come out right? And you stick it in a filter and you put it in a bucket or whatever you want to brew it in. And then you put 2.8 liters of water, which is about 12 cups of water, in it, and you leave it on your counter for 20 hours. It can just sit out for 20 hours. Make sure you pull the bag, the filter, the coffee grounds out after 20 hours because otherwise it's going to be way too strong, and that's a highly concentrated batch. So then you're going to mix that with another 12 cups of water, or what we'll probably do is pour it out of the jug and then fill the other half of the cup with water. There you go. You did it.
This is like fucking chemistry.
It kind of is.
I would, per your instructions, I was never good at chemistry, which ties into math. I was never good at math. I would not do this thing.
I was great at all those things. But cold brew is so convenient now, and you get so many different flavors out of the coffee when you do that. You know what I'm going to do for you one time? I'm going to make you a cold brew, but then I'm going to brew it hot as well and have you taste it side by side so you can see how it's different, because I find that shit fascinating. I also, continuing to talk about work, I got invited to teach a class for a whole bunch of different employees who can come in, where we teach them more about coffee. So I get to learn more about coffee, which is cool because now I have to be an expert about it.
Professor Kelli.
Professor Kelli, that's me.
That's pretty exciting that you're going to get to headline a class. I know when I did a little bit of teaching, a few months, a year, whatever it is, it was very rewarding, very challenging, and I think you'll get the best of that because it's not a permanent thing,
right? But
instead it's like a bigger training moment for you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Like I said, even to just learn more about coffee, right? And I'm going to be learning as much as they will. But I've always really enjoyed training the times that I've done it, and I have some good ideas to help improve the class with the other manager that I'll be working with. So it'll be great.
Just to close it out, because I know at @InsMouth_Tide, one of our Patreon backers and a very big Broquette supporter for the show, he tends to ask every week or so what was the big hit this week for the new comic or the comic shop. And I'm going to try to remember as we do the Broquette block, but something that stuck out this week for New Comic Book Day was the J.J. Abrams Spider-Man book, which we had covered, I believe, a couple of months ago, mainly written by his son, Henry, and he overlooked the plot. That actually did way better than I expected. I know we ordered several copies of this, and I cross-pulled it for Life of Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man, and most people were like, yeah, I'll take it at the sub. I'll take it at the sub. And it's because it's a 5-issue miniseries, so it's kind of easy to just like, yeah, I'll take the 5 issues and let it be. But even the variant by Chip Kidd, he ended up doing a die-cut variant cover for it. So the front of it is like Spider-Man's eye with the mask, and then it's cut out in the eye portion, and then it opens up and it's just a all-white cover with a little spider logo on it. That ended up catching people's imagination because they all like, yep, I'll take it. One guy tried to buy multiples, and I said, nope. But that one I upsold to my coworker, Sean, because he's a huge Spider-Man fan, and there's the ongoing joke of I always try to upsell him on things every week. And I'm like, man, I'm afraid we're going to get stuck with these Spider-Man comics. I don't know how well it's going to do. And I'm like, hey, Sean, do you like Jurassic Park? He's immediately like, yeah, why? What are you trying to sell me, Daniel? Because it's every time. I'm like, Sean, I'm just pointing something out for you. And I was like, you like Jurassic Park logo? He's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm like, and you obviously like Spider-Man, right? It's like your favorite superhero. And he's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, well, let me show you this cover. Because Chip Kidd designed the original Jurassic Park book logo, and he has now taken his skills and applied it to Spider-Man. And not only can you buy this, you can see this logo. It's also in die-cut format, so you can interact with this logo, but it's only $4.99, whatever it may. There's no price on this thing. And he was like, Daniel, I'll take it. Like he was. Good thing he did, because we sold out today. As many copies as I ordered, we sold out of that die cut cover. So that was the big one.
I'm glad you don't bring your salesmanship home.
I do that every week, every Tuesday to them.
Like, Kelli, do you see this sink full of dishes?
The other thing, the Speculator book this week ended up being Absolute Carnage, the Young Guns variant, which ended up being one of Marvel's stupid-ass fucking classified covers. Where they're like, oh, here's the Final Order cutoffs. Here's the variant to Absolute Carnage. What is it? It's a black cover with a big red logo on it that says classified. Good luck ordering, comic book shops. No returns. Come on. How am I supposed to fucking order that shit? So I just ordered it based on how the previous Young Guns variants did, and it turns out that this particular cover is a Venomized Hulk. So I guess it's the first in-continuity appearance of Venomized Hulk. I don't think that's true. I feel like we've got him before, but I could be wrong. And it sold out because speculators were coming out. They're trying to get it. One of the weird things about it, though, and the only reason I bring this out, because I don't give a shit about speculator books. It's just buy what you like, buy what you read, and if it's worth money, then great. But this one had designs on it. So it's supposed to be the Young Guns variant. It's the design variant. It shows you what steps the artist went through to design Venomized Hulk. And this particular picture of the Hulk you can still see green muscles through the venomized character. And the artist's note is the Hulk is so full-bodied that the symbiote cannot cover the full character. And even Sean pointed out, he's like, but Venom's like almost as big as the Hulk in some of these comic books, and he forms like giant hands and giant like shields that out of his symbiote self that are way bigger than and even in the same cover itself, you see the venomized Hulk with like a giant Venom hand. And it's like he can use that black goo that he's making that giant Venom hand out of to cover the rest of his body. What are we even talking about? But it's, of course, a design standpoint. You want to have some green in that Venom Hulk design. So that's why they ended up doing it that way. But the fact that they're saying that the symbiote is not big enough to cover all of it, it's like, come on, man. That's bullshit.
The note should have just said, well, we got to see the Hulk.
That's what it should. Some green so people would know it's the Hulk.
Right.
Whatever. So that's the I guess the new comic book day stuff that went on.
Cool.
Sorry, went off on some comic book talk.
That's fine.
You know, that's kind of it with everything this week. It was a lighter news week. We're gonna have hopefully more next week with possibly the previews catalog and maybe some more comic books that are gonna come out. We want to remind everyone that the Podcast Awards ceremony is going to be on Sunday, September 29th. If you're on the East Coast, it is going to be at 9 p.m. So make sure to tune into that if you're on, what's the opposite, Pacific? It's going to be 6 p.m. at that point. But if you follow at Podcast Awards on Twitter, they're going to be streaming it on Twitter, on their YouTube channel, and on their website, podcastawards.com. So let's see if we take it all the way this year. Third time might be the charm with the Podcast Awards on their games and hobbies. Huge thanks once again for nominating us. This week, we also had our 7-year anniversary for the podcast since 2012. A lot of Brokettes and fellow podcasters came out and retweeted and gave us congratulations and all kinds of very kind words about the podcast. And I'm afraid to give shout outs because I know I'll forget one person. So I'm just going to say thank you all so much for the kind words. It really meant a lot to us. And that's really, it's not the numbers, it's not the downloads, it's the kind words and interactions with all of you that put fuel in our tank.
Before we wrap it up, I forgot something really important, Daniel. This is so important because I learned I have a new skill this week.
What skill is that?
I can do Blue's Clues voice.
Blues voice?
Blues voice.
The little doggy?
From Blues Clues, yes. And I'm excellent at Blues voice.
Well, let's hear it. Now it's time for So Long.
What?
Does she not sing?
No, it's
okay,
just
well,
Steve.
Fine. Just it's a clue. Blues Clues. What's that? My name is what? I was always like, how's he go to fucking college? Like, he's a fucking idiot.
Let Steve do what he wants.
One thing I know we're analyzing fucking Blues Clues,
yes.
But Joe was way smarter than Steve.
No!
He was.
No, I don't like Joe.
I don't like Joe either.
Joe was too into it.
I felt like Joe knew the answer and he was kind of leading the audience to it, whereas I believe that Steve really did not know the answer.
And
what comes after 2?
So then who's the better actor?
Steve, yeah.
Yeah,
Steve
100%, right?
I mean, the show didn't go on too much longer after him.
No, because nobody cared about Joe with his giant eyebrows.
I feel insulted.
His were like way bigger than yours.
Impossible. Let's take his head circumference and see like the size, literally the size of the eyebrow.
Like his eyebrows meshed with his eyelashes.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
He's like he's like Ra's al Ghul.
Oh, that's right. He does have crazy eyebrows. No. I'm excited Blue's Clues is coming back in November, so we'll get some more episodes. Maybe I'll get to voice Blue. JK, no.
But that's how we're going to end it this week, everyone. Thank you all so much, Brokehead Core members, for tuning in this week and for the support each week and each month.
Don't forget you can find us on Twitter at ReasonsI'mBroke at Palpakelly.
We will see you next week. I am Youngster Daniel.
And I am Palpakelly.
And Brokehead Core.
All will be well. Bow-bow.